Sitting with me are Kathryn Jacob. I'm going to get the Marlene Wickel, Melissa Cogavin, and I'm instructed to just say pay. So, why don't we start with everyone introducing themselves?
Hello, I'm Kathryn Jacob and I'm CEO of Pearl & Dean, which is an advertising company in the UK.
I'm Marlene Wickel. I'm Managing Director of Mineur Mediavision. We are a cinema advertising company as well, based here in Amsterdam, and our mother company is based in France.
My name is Melissa Cogavin. I'm a consultant based in London, and my expertise is in event cinema.
Hi, I'm Liou, just call me Pei. I'm CEO and co-founder of an eSports organization in the UK.
Also, I have to make note, I was told that this is the first time there's been an all-woman panel in the history of ISE, so thank you, women, for making this possible. That's a big deal. Kathryn, you and Marlene also represent an organization called SAWA.
Yes.
Well, that's the acronym. Could one or both of you tell us a little bit about?
So SAWA is the Screen Advertising Worldwide Association, and it's the only global trade body that exists in media, and we are the joyful members of this organisation, which exists across every continent in the world. So we have members in India, Asia, North America, South America, and we work together to extol the benefits of advertising in cinema to brands who are, of course, increasingly global. We share research, we share insights, we share best practice, and every 2 years we all get together in some exotic location. 18 months ago it was Amsterdam, very exotic. And we get together and we talk about how we're going to improve cinema revenues, the experiences for our audience that we can help through our advertisers, and we have lots of fun.
Yes. Yeah. And it's good to share everything with each other, like we have some campaigns which are quite global, or we have sometimes some European issues, so it's good to share everything about the topics we have in our country.
Melissa. Melissa was the founder of the Event Cinema Association. She's no longer there, she's now a consultant, but can you tell us a little bit about the Event Cinema Association?
Yeah, the Event Cinema Association was set up in 2012, kind of in response to a lack of coherence in the industry at that time. It still had the name alternative content, which didn't really mean anything even to the industry a lot of the time. And I saw an opportunity to bring people together and do the same sort of things you're saying about providing best practice, providing a community of people to work together for a common goal of promotion and support for the industry, conferences, awards, and to get the name Event Cinema out into the public domain to sell cinema tickets, essentially.
So my embarrassing question for Pei, I hope it's not embarrassing, but you are involved in eSport, which I believe is going to have a huge impact in the cinema world.
Well, I hope so.
Do you consider eSport a part of, under the umbrella of Event Cinema?
Well, I think eSport, there's a lot of ways from the eSports perspective. When we look at cinema, I think there's a lot of ways that we can do things inside the cinema venue, no matter if it's content or event related. So I do see the potential, and I do see that cinema is also looking for new way to do alternative business rather than the traditional.
I was a little premature. For those who may not know, how do you define an eSport?
eSport is professional competitive video gaming. That's the definition on Wikipedia that you can find. So it's young people who are like football players that you can imagine that they play a game, they play it really, really, really well. So they are on the professional level, they join a team, and then they participate international tournaments. So they are considered as professional video gamers. video game players.
I know there are now colleges in the United States offering scholarships, sports scholarships for esports.
Yes, I mean, US has always been a bit faster in new things, so they do offer scholarship in university already. My teams are now, by coincidence, all UK, and the company is located in the UK. For example, if you look at UK universities, all the university has an eSport club. Right. So they all play amateurly some games, and they organize university tournaments, which is also another level of gaming tournament that we think can be alternative content for the cinema on the more local level.
This is a question for anybody on the panel. Do you see, to what extent maybe do you see event cinema and cinema advertising and something new on the horizon like esports? Are they competitors? Are they helping each other's cause?
From an advertising point of view, what you get with event cinema is it's the most upmarket audiovisual audience that you can get. There's virtually no arts coverage available in the UK apart from Sky Arts. So it's super premium, it's national, and it's part of the increasing segmentation of cinema. So if you'd have talked to cinema advertising, it's quite interesting. Paladine was founded in 1953, and we were clearing our office out the weekend, and I found something from the 1970s, which was basically, Police Academy 43, and it was all just kind of 16 to 20, it was just those we talk about sequel, franchises now, at least they're good. I'm not sure Police Academy had anybody who was interested in it, even the people who were starring in it. And it's interesting now that what you get with digital and increasing releases and increasing market segmentation, so you will get someone who will go to Downton Abbey, who an advertiser will understand will be a 35 plus ABC One adult, whereas someone who will go and see Sonic will be a family audience. And I think all the event cinema is just another part of that segmentation. And I think it's an interesting addition to what we're selling to advertisers, right. And also yet another opportunity for us to get audiences into cinema. Because although we may only have cinema as 8 hours of our lives, I think that it's far more prevalent in terms of word of mouth. People talk about when they've been to the cinema, yeah. They plan when they go to the cinema. Right. It's that whole thing about using, social media and WhatsApp and Snapchat to say, if I decide to go to the cinema with David Hancock this evening, which is not unusual. I keep asking him, he won't come. Lord knows how many times I've asked him, Marlene. But it is that whole thing where you'll say, we're finishing at 6, what time are you finishing? Okay, I'm finishing then, right, shall we go here? Yeah, no, I'll be near there. That whole thing, it's a huge part of people's social currency. Yeah. And even films people haven't been to see. I mean, I have a teenage daughter, and the planning that went into go and see 1917, you would genuinely thought she was in fact planning to invade Western Europe herself, given the number of people that were involved. And I think all that you're talking about in all of these things is just putting cinema at the heart of people's lives more and more.
And especially Generation Z and millennials are difficult to reach with other media. And when you organize all kinds of events in cinema, they come to certain titles in cinema, but this makes it.
So how do you reach them? How do you reach them?
We reach them, well, our advertisers, they want to advertise in cinema because these two generations, they come to cinema, but then you have certain titles where they come to, and when you organize more things in cinema, like gaming or all kind of other events, they come more and more. Even some people who are never coming to cinema, but when they go there to do a special gaming event, they get familiar to the cinema or to this event.
Melissa, are there any categories open that haven't been tapped for event cinema that you can think of?
Well, I think eSports is the next big one. People have been talking about it for quite a while, but I've just done quite a bit of research into this area for a piece for a magazine. It strikes me that you're talking about marketing and segmenting and trying to reach certain audiences and trying to reach the gaming audience and the young people who are hard to reach. They probably are going to the cinema. It's just a different way of segmenting it.
Yeah.
And I think it's tapping into that market, and it will be enormous because, as we saw with David's slides, there is a saturation point, and with PLFs and with 3D and the threat of Netflix and streaming. This will be a very big market, but it's probably at its infancy the way event cinema was 7 or 8 years ago. I think we just need to be patient.
Can I?
Please.
Yeah.
I don't think Netflix and streaming is a threat. I
No,
think
I
it's
don't,
just
I don't.
another form of content. Every bit of research
I.
that we've done, and we've shared it at SAWA, is people who love great content love great content. They're just consuming it at different places.
Yeah.
And all that it's doing is, if people still want, it's when streaming came into music and everyone said, that's it, no one's ever going to tour again, no one's ever going to go and see live music again because you can curate the music you want. It's utter cobblers. If you have actually sat in that last collective experience where you don't have your phone on, where you don't have where you don't have, you know, an ad break, I mean, particularly if you're in the States, like every 8 minutes. Yeah. It is the last great collective experience. And we were talking earlier about, we did a preview screening of 1917 for some of our advertisers. And to be in that room, I was lucky enough, I'd already seen it, to be in that room and to have them gasp at the same time, to cry. And they all sat there, and these are hardened, cynical advertisers, for 15 minutes after the screening had ended, talking about what they'd just seen. There is no other experience about cinema. Netflix, why do you think Netflix release in cinema? It's because it gives it kudos, as opposed to being yet another thing on an endless bloody, you know, player where you just go, what are we going to watch tonight? I don't know. Is it going to be Love Island or bloody, bloody, blah?
To your point,
yeah.
NATO, National Association of Theater Owners, a week or so ago, released a report, and they polled, I think it was 2,500 people, half of whom go to a movie once a year or more, and half have stopped going to the movies. The poll was, what do you watch on Netflix and why? And the majority of all of those people, they say they'll watch a movie on Netflix after it's been in a movie theater, which I guess gives it some legitimacy.
Yeah, but
so that's a boon for exhibitors to me, and Netflix should pay attention to that when they're having their talks.
And the other thing that everyone always forgets about Netflix, it is a business built on debt, you know, and everyone kind of conveniently forgets that. And everyone talks about The Irishman, but no one talks about some of the stuff that they've got that actually isn't The Irishman. And, you know, and cinema gives it a credence and a gloss that perhaps the day-to-day reality of it, you know, doesn't exist.
Well, you two were saying earlier that the Bond film is one of the biggest sellers you've ever had. I'm assuming car advertisers. Who's advertising with Bond?
What kind of advertise for Bond? All kind of advertise. The partners of Bond, of course, like Heineken and Sony, some others, Jaguar. I suppose you have the same. But I would never say that's confidential information. I can't tell people when they're advertising. Okay, but this is.
But it's the
brand. Are you going to have to kill them all?
Yeah, you are. Well, obviously. Especially now they've found out that I go to the cinema with David Hancock, and yeah, that's going to be. No, it's what you'd expect. It's one of those films that people who don't normally see themselves as cinema goers will go and see.
Yeah, right. Some people go once in the 3 years because Bond is in cinema.
And it's an easily understandable premium kind of experience. And it's really funny. Quite a lot of stuff that, you know, we do around product placement in film. People almost welcome it. They laugh, you know, when he says, "Oh, that's really lovely watch." Oh, it's an Omega. You know, it's just part of the shtick, isn't it? Which is how many? Oh, look, it's the Heineken. Great. Yeah. You know.
Melissa and Pei, you were saying earlier, especially Pei, earlier today when we chatted, that eSports hasn't really taken off in cinemas yet. We all seem to think it will. What's the biggest hurdle at this point?
I think it's because it's two industries come from different generations. They don't talk the same language.
Yeah.
You know,
I totally agree.
Most of the business relationship is this: if two parties talk the same language, has exactly the same business behavior, then it's very easy to come to agreement. But in cinema and esports case, cinema is one of the oldest entertainment. Esports is the youngest one. Cinema came from analog, went to digital, and esports is born totally digital. Just as a person, you know, that now I am working with my team members, and the oldest one is 27, and I'm 45. When they write me a WhatsApp, I have to ask for translation, because I'm like, what the hell are you writing? You know, they make abbreviations, they use words that we don't use, and they use words not in the same sense as we do. So all this to tell you that I think that's why when we were chatting, I think this will take a bit of time. But I do have hope, because you know, the fact that I come from the cinema for the past 15 years, I worked in the cinema. So I'm hoping that I can be the bridge between the two worlds. And so this year we will make a bit of trial in selected territory, and to see in which way can we bring the two worlds together and make it profitable and make the audience happy with the service.
Can I just add to that? I think the other thing is there's an element of perception, and in the gaming world, cinema is a tiny, minuscule fraction of what the overall revenue is for that market. It's eye-watering. It's beyond anything that it's worth more than the music and the movie industry put together globally, just gaming. And so for cinemas, and conversely, for event cinema is a tiny percentage of their overall box office as well. So you've got two tiny percentages at work there, and I think there is potential, but it's just going to take a long time, with a big generation gap as well, for the bridge to be crossed.
Do you think that's a hurdle can be crossed?
Well, it's not a hurdle. I think it's just a case of connecting the dots, and that will take time. It may even take a generation for that to happen. I don't know. I hope not. But I hope I'm still here to see the day. But I do.
Hopefully we're half a generation there.
I think there's quite a language barrier, a kind of cultural barrier there.
Yeah.
Well,
but I do believe the fact that, well, personally, not only personally, because when I talk to esports people about their opinion, if I bring the service into the cinema, so I kind of make a survey with, you know, millennial and Gen Z. What do you think about cinema? If I bring a service into the cinema, will you come or not? They will. It's just that for them, in their daily activities, which are 90% digital, they don't really look at physical entertainment anymore. So you have to be creative to create certain events that move them physically to somewhere else, and then let them be familiar with that environment, right. Which I think is the problem of cinema today, because most of them don't even cross the door of the cinema, so they don't even look at the advertisement or the posters, what are the movies on, because they don't have the time for that, because they have so many digital options. But what I personally still have still believe that there's a potential is after the first time that I went to eSport tournament, it was an arena of 50,000 people, was totally sold out, and they spent 3 days inside that arena from 1 o'clock in the afternoon to midnight. So they eat, they drink, they watch stuff, and they spent a lot of money. 3 days is £150 a ticket, and most of them flew in to London because they know that they can see a content with another 999 people, a content that they all love, and they yell as they are in a football stadium, but they are normally predominantly introvert. So it was quite funny that I met them in the corridor, and they are all walking, like introverts. They just look on the floor, but when the game is on, they shout as a football fan. So I think this is what cinema is all about. We are human beings. Human beings are social animals. We love to stay together for the same thing that we all love, but you need to segment them, and then find the right content to the right audience.
I just got an image of 50,000 introverts.
Yeah, it's quite amazing. I would suggest anyone, if you have the time,
if you
to go.
I was talking to some gamers about this, and I was doing this research, and they were saying, and we're all just what you said. We're all the same. We're all human, and this particular generation has found its social outlet on social media. And we like to pretend, well, I don't understand what that means, I don't want to talk. Well, we all have Facebook profiles. We all project a certain image of ourselves on social media. And it's exactly the same for these guys. And a lot of these social events, they will be meeting each other in person for the first time. So it's actually a very social event, and they get a massive kick out of it. But equally, someone I know very well said, he's a semi-pro gamer, said, there is no thrill like it, gaming, because you can be yourself, you can be a version of yourself that's the best you can be, and you're with like-minded people that you know really well, but only in the digital sphere. But they're very close friends, and they might be all over the world. You might never meet them. So I think there's a huge opportunity to get these people together and tap into that.
Yeah, I would add one thing that was a huge surprise to me, because I was, can you imagine that I'm the only over 45 years old in that stadium? Okay. And I was the only one who doesn't know about that game, nor the teams, nor how the game was played. So I was taking videos, taking photos, and when I was reviewing my video, I suddenly realized that it's 50,000 people, but it's pitch black. No one used their mobile phones. No one. I was the only one. So during the break, I asked my neighbor, who seems like 19, and I'm like, can I ask you a question? He said, sure. Why don't you guys, take photos or videos to post on your social media, but you can find it later on the internet? That was the answer. So, and he told me, if I'm making video, I'm missing the game.
That's fascinating, because that's true.
Yeah,
that's true all the time. They're taking videos.
Exactly, but that's how they are, because I have always think that a millennial and Gen Z will use their phone 24 hours on 24 hours. But that was the proof. When the content is sufficiently interesting and they are passionate about it, mobile phone is no longer necessary. So that's a very interesting thing.
We're going to have to wrap this up soon for the next speakers, but who should get mic'd up for their presentation. But do we have any questions from, wait, this is the cool part. Well, okay. Catch.
Hey, good.
Thank you, great panel, great insights. I was wondering if you have any thoughts about Disney paying $75 million for the filmed stage version of Hamilton. Is that going to work? Is it event cinema?
Yeah,
is it going to be good for advertising?
Well, musicals have done really, really well in terms of both audience and advertiser interest. Sorry?
Apart from Cats.
Oh, yeah, we don't. No, Cats was just a hideous, tortuous experiment game played on us. We don't talk about that. Poor Judi Dench, will she ever recover? So they've done really, really well. So Showman, Bohemian Rhapsody, Rocket Man, it's become a thing. I think it's going to be interesting to see how In the Heights does in the summer, because, the John Chu kind of Lin-Manuel Miranda thing. I understand why they've done it, and I think it's a film, it's not. I see it as a film and not event cinema. It will be done differently, I think. Don't you, Melissa?
Probably will.
Yeah.
But I just think it's another example of the lines blurring and confidence in the sector, to the point where Disney are now wading into this and throwing tons of money at it. I think that's just a great endorsement for an amazing art form. Really.
Or they'll send it straight to Disney Plus, and
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
But it is interesting, that whole theatre development. I mean, in London, we've got a production with Timothy Chalamet in at the Old Vic called 4,000 Miles, and it's Timothy Chalamet and a very venerated English actress called Eileen Atkins. It is absolutely sold out, and I'm fairly certain it's not because people really want to go and see Eileen Atkins. I think it's driven by the Chalamet audience, and I've got a friend who works at the Old Vic who said they literally had young girls phoning up saying, but I've got to see him, you know, and it's just this. I think that increasing thing about people crossing over, you know, you've got Jessica Chastain in the West End. Increasingly, there's as Melissa says, there's a blurring. It is all entertainment to our audience, and the issue about going to see the cinema, you know, going to the cinema to see theatre is actually, if you're in the Light or an Everyman or what have you, the seats are a bit more comfortable than those old Victorian, you know, Frank Matcham theatres. You can stretch your legs.
Any other questions from the audience? Not one? All right. Well, I want to thank the panel, and thank you very much for your insights, and I give them a round of applause.
Thank you.